This Social Security measure gives at least some protection.
For anybody to hand this out, we're asking for a chance to have the people who will receive the benefit to earn their way. The same principle established under the Social Security system in the 30s.
It is no longer acceptable to discuss women's rights as separate from human rights.
I know we can come together to face down the challenges of our own time.
Hello, welcome back to The Democrats, the show where we introduce you to candidates for the State House from Nashua. We're Democrats. I'm Cindy Rosenwald. This is my co-host, David Campbell.
Hi.
Today we have with us Dan Hansberry, candidate from Ward 8. So welcome, Dan.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Tell us a bit about yourself as we start off.
You know, I'm a Nashua native, graduated from Nashua High School, went to college at Keene State, got a bachelor's in science and education. I've taught for 37 years, just retired in June. I completed a master's along the way at Riviera College and then a certificate of advanced graduate study at Fitchburg State College. I'm married. My wife's a teacher. She teaches in Massachusetts. I have 2 children. My daughter, Kathy, graduated from the University of New Hampshire, and my son, Michael, graduated from the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Kathy's a teacher, like her parents. She teaches in the Merrimack School District, and Michael is a trainer in medical software.
Tell us about your experience in public service. This is your first time running for the legislature, but you're no stranger to public service, so tell us a little bit about that.
I was on the school board for 13 years during the 80s and 90s. I left for 4 years, then came back for 8 and was on from the mid-90s until 2004.
Wow.
Chairman at some point.
I served as president. My last year on the board, I was president of the Board of Education in 2003. And most of the time on the board, I served as chairman of the Human Resources Committee.
Well, with that extensive background knowledge of our educational system here in the city, and obviously you have to know about how the state impacts that. What's your impression of what's happened the last 2 years? Probably was one of the inspirations for you running, I would think.
I think the cuts to education, K through college, have been devastating, particularly the $90 million cut to the state university system. UNH is always well regarded nationally, and my fear is with these cuts, they won't be able to maintain their reputation and the degree won't be as valuable. And the other concern that goes right along with that is it's beginning to make the cost of a state college or state university education unaffordable. UNH is, the 4th most expensive public university in the country.
I've heard even as high as #1 now.
Right.
Well, I know that tuition rates went up about 10% this past year, and our students now carry the highest debt load in the nation. And that worries me because it puts college out of reach for many families. And I think we would all agree that people want their children to be able to go to college. If that's what their goal is, we should expect that every child in New Hampshire who's ready for college, who wants to go to college, can afford to go to college.
Well, to put it in perspective, my daughter graduated in 2003, and the total cost for 4 years of education at UNH was $54,000. Assuming that the cost stays steady, which is unlikely, but if it were to graduate 4 years from now, it'll cost $104,000. So it's just about doubled from a degree being granted in 2003 to a degree granted in 2016. So it's gone up 100% really in 13 years.
Now, there was a bill in the legislature last session to drop the dropout age in high school from 18 to 16. It passed the House overwhelmingly. It didn't make it through the Senate. Can you address that for us based on your experience?
I think you want to do everything you can to encourage kids to stay in school. And if you don't have a high school diploma, there are so many doors of opportunity that close to you, and you really want to prepare kids for some kind of training or education beyond high school. So I think it was a smart move to try to keep the kids in school and have programs that address the needs of the kids who struggle to stay till 18 in schools. We're starting to do that with a lack of funding. You don't know what will happen to those programs, but I think it was a move in the right direction.
Well, as you well know, New Hampshire was the last state in the country to require public kindergarten be available to every 5-year-old. And last year there was an effort in the House to repeal that requirement for public kindergarten. What's your take on that?
I go right back to that issue back in '87 because it was during that time period that public kindergarten was implemented in Nashua. I remember interviewing the woman who was going to head up the kindergarten program. We had a temporary director, and the responsibility was going to be absorbed by the elementary school principals. I can remember with the additional enrollment, we added a number of assistant principals at the elementary schools for the first time in the history of Nashua. I was involved in that process, so I was with it in its nascent stage and still continue to be a strong believer in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the largest tax increases, the largest tax increase in the history of our state was actually implemented last time. They don't call it a tax, but it was the hospital tax. And that had grave consequences right here in Nashua. Do you know a little bit about that you can share with us?
I've been going door to door, and that's one of the issues that I've been addressing with people. And it's amazing how many people are upset over that. People who either work in a hospital in Nashua. I was talking to one woman that I know, and she works at Elliott. She was talking at Elliott Hospital. There were 164 positions cut as a result of the denial of the Medicaid reimbursement to the hospitals. Another home that I went to, the woman doesn't work in the healthcare industry, but she said she had a close friend who lost a very good paying job at one of the hospitals. These were secure jobs that people could bank on week in and week out, and all of a sudden they're on the unemployment rolls. It was devastating to the local economy.
Well, if you take away the city of Nashua itself, the hospitals are the largest employers in Nashua.
Right.
And we lost, I think, 300 jobs
Right.
from that $115 million tax increase that the Republican majority levied on the hospital system.
Right.
It's been devastating. Those were good jobs, and I don't see that we're likely to get them back anytime soon.
No.
So you've been going door to door.
Yes.
That's a lot of work, but I think it's one of the best ways not only to get elected, but to get a feel for what your constituents and what the voters want. What else do you hear out there? What's the pulse as you go from door to door in your ward?
There's been a lot of talk about rail travel, and that's one of the issues that's been coming up. And there is strong support in the community to at least go for the money that was available for the study and do the study. Because we have so many people who commute to Boston, commute to 128, and this summer I went to a number of sporting events, some concerts, and by 4:30, when you're south of 495, the traffic heading north isn't moving. It's hard to believe that the government isn't supportive of at least further studying that issue.
Well, it's very important to the city of Nashua, the mayor, the board of aldermen, the business community. And I hear when I'm going door to door a lot of support for rail as well. That is a big issue, no doubt.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been nice talking to you. And thank you for joining us. We've had another edition of The Democrats. We've been interviewing today Dan Hansberry, former president of the Board of Education and candidate for state representative in Ward 8 here in Nashua. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.